back to another episode of Prison to Street Life. It feels funny calling it an episode. What's going on, G?
What's up, brother?
Yeah,
What's up?
Hey, so me and G Frank been trying to do this for the last couple of weeks. We stopped for about a month and a half, maybe even 2 months, because I was having problems with the audio, and there's a lot of things that go into making just a simple podcast conversation. And I have 1,000 things I'm doing at one time, so it's hard to put everything together and get it all in line. So, at any rate, we did this last week, and I wasn't recording and shit. It's just so many steps that you got to take, man. So, anyway, man, hey, so bro, so I want to focus on where we left off originally a couple of months ago, and that was when you first came off death row. Now we had talked about in previous
Okay.
podcasts individuals that were on there and the struggles that they went through getting their death notice. So at some point, can you walk us through the day that you got the notice, man, that you were leaving death row, and what was the environment, at that
Well,
point with the other inmates?
well, okay. Well, it's like any other morning. That Sunday in '05, uh, I was watching the Bengals Pittsburgh Steelers playoff game in which Carson Palmer at the time was quarterback, and he had got his knee ran into, and that was heartbreaking. So I'm watching the Steelers and Bengals. Bengals lose, obviously, and so I'm pissed off. The next day is Monday. You know, and I think it's January the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So I get called up front, and they tell me you got a attorney video visit or phone call. So I get ready, go down there. They shackle you up, cuff you up, shackle you up. So I'm, you know, going down there to talk to this guy. Now I'm thinking, since my attorney was a big Steelers fan, he wanted to rub it in. He couldn't let sleeping dogs lie.
Right.
So I get in there, I pick up the phone, and he said, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He said, "Man, I got some good news and bad news for you." I'm not really listening to him, so I
Right.
said, "Yeah, go ahead, give me the bad news." Because now I'm thinking, "Oh shit, this shit it's over." Because I was in the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, the killing court. I was already. That's when it's over with.
Oh, really?
Uh, yeah. So, because normally, very rarely does the United States Supreme Court
Yeah.
take cases. They take like 1% of all cases in the country anyway. So the chances are the U.S. Supreme taking my case over en banc Sixth Circuit is slim and none. But anyway, um, so I go down there, pick up. He said, "Good news, bad news." I said, "Give me the bad news." So I'm bracing myself for it. He said, "Yeah, the bum ass Bengals got beat by my Steelers," and I said, "Oh, this mother calling me down here
That's
type
good
shit."
shit, though.
You know, I'm right. I'm listening to Joe go into it. They're laughing. The whole office is laughing. Man, hey, it's commissary day. I need to fill out my commissary. I'm down here talking to these clowns about the Steelers. So I'm getting ready to get off the. I'm thinking I'm getting ready to get off. He said, "Hey man, you don't want your good news?" And I was like, "Good news?" I forgot all about that part. He said, "Hey man, one day you're gonna be able to sit down there in that stadium and see those
That's
bum ass
crazy.
Bengals because the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court has thrown out your death sentence. Congratulations."
God damn.
Well, let me just say, not only was I stunned, I didn't hear anything out after that. Although you know how when you underwater and your eye and your ears is popping and
Yeah, like some guy
you
in
don't
war
get
where like a bomb goes off and he's got the ringing and shit in his ears
right,
and walking around
right,
dazed. Ugh, that's
right. I
crazy.
likened it that I was underwater when he told me that I couldn't hear him. It was like just and I said what? And I heard everybody in the background clapping and saying, "Yeah, George, yeah, buddy, we did it. Good luck, man. We'll see you at in the county jail in a week or two." And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, man, you won 2-1, man. And they'll probably try to
Wow.
take it to the U.S. Supreme Court, but they're not going to take this case. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's called a
man.
writ of
So,
certiorari or writ of certiorari or some
right,
shit like that for them to
yeah,
take it.
so they tried to file a writ, the state did, but it was 3 days. They didn't even take, it was 3 days. They
Yeah.
denied. So
Yeah.
here I am. So I'm getting ready to go back to court. So let me tell you, back up a little bit. After they tell me, I go back to the to my pod that I came
Right.
out of. And remember, I had mentioned earlier that it was commissary. So I go up to my step. I'm walking and I'm going up the steps, and I remember everybody looking at me, and it was weird. And there was one guy named Johnson. He looks at me. He says, "Yeah, I got the same issue. I'm a win on the same issue, man." And I'm looking at him
Yeah.
again. I can't even hear him. I'm just looking
Right.
at him, and I'm wondering, how do you know before I told anybody? But that's another story.
Right.
But I go up to my cell. I fill out my commissary. Man, they bring the commissary the same day. I fill it out 2 o'clock. The commissary comes. I don't really care, but
No.
she started putting combination locks, batteries, nail clippers, fingernail clippers, and all kind of shit. And I'm like, this ain't mine. She was like, yeah, it is. This is what you filled out. And she showed me the paper.
Yeah.
Man, I done put all kind of bullshit. I wasn't
Yeah.
even, my
Fucking
head was so
rubber
gone.
bands and shit. Nah, listen,
I
I can
was
only imagine. Like, I can't even
man,
imagine, man. That shit right there.
man, I go back, I don't turn the TV on, I don't turn the radio on, and I remember sitting on the side of my bunk for at least, I don't know, man, to 5 o'clock. There was a couple guys coming to my cell. The guys want to tell you,
Yeah.
good, congratulations, man. I'm happy for you and all that stuff like that. And that's all genuine. I get it, but I'm telling you, man, I still couldn't hear them. In my
No.
in my recesses of my brain, man, I'm all kind of shit is running through my like, man, this journey has been a mother. And finally, all those death certificates I had to sign, all those death notices, and all that stuff like that. Man. Just thinking about it, man, even to this day, shakes me in a way, man. But I end up waiting about a month and a half before I end up going back to court. So I get back to court, and they run me through the status reviews and all that stuff like that. They have to go through it. I get my case, I get my numbers, and then I get my sentence redone. Now I go back to OSP. I'm there for about 48 hours, and they wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they tell me, "Hey man, pack your shit. You're out of here."
Yeah.
I'm like when? He's like, "You be leaving at 4 o'clock."
That's
So I'm packing
crazy.
all my stuff up, man. I end up giving everything to my good dudes, man. I
Yeah.
left everything with them, and I'm on this long bus trip to CMC. That's Columbus, Ohio, for you guys. That's the R&D. That's the where
It's
it's like
like
the hub of the
it's a hub.
penitentiary.
I've been there a few times and shit where you sit in that fucking
Yeah,
room,
right.
cuffed up, that little
Waiting.
bathroom.
That's right.
Yeah.
Waiting to go. That's right. Waiting to go to the penitentiary you've been assigned to.
Right. It's a Penn Station. They
And
send
man,
everybody there, and you wait for the
it's
bus to
like
your yard to show up. Yeah.
people you ain't seen in years.
Right. Or at all, like even at all, you're
Right.
just sitting there like, what's going on? And so I
That's
could,
right.
yeah,
That's
that
right.
I could
So
imagine what
I'm
that shit
I'm I'm,
was.
I'm I go in the Warren Correction Pen. I'm in there, and it's a bunch of dudes in there, and I'm quiet because now it's real now. Where am I going? How am I going? What is
Right.
this? Man, I get down there on the bus, guys telling me how I go. Somebody telling you how shit go ain't nothing how it really is. They give you some parameters, but it ain't nothing.
He said
Nothing stays the
parameters, yeah.
same. You niggas talking
Motherfucker,
about
I've been on death
right,
row
but
18 years.
right, right. Death row 18 and a half, almost 19 years, motherfucker. I don't even know what you're talking about. So I get there, go through the R&D, man. The guy's going through all my stuff. And I'm watching him go through my stuff. He's watching me, and he's looking at my file, and he's looking at me, and he puts his head down. I'm like, oh, here we go. You know what I mean? And he was like, and he looked up at me. I end up knowing him years later. He's a good guy. He looks at me. He says, "You're gonna be all right, buddy, right?" I said, "I'm gonna be all right." He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be all right. Why wouldn't I?" He said, "I was just asking, man. He seen that white shirt and that blue pants with that red
Yeah.
stripe. He said, this motherfucker's on death row. Okay, he read my file. He said, oh, he might. Nah, man, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Because a lot of times they'll think something like that in their mindset, like he's coming from a place. Well, he got a body, but a lot of people got bodies in there.
Right,
But Death Row has a special type
right. A lot
of
of people.
inmate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, is this
That's right.
motherfuckers that just hit the
Special type of
yard
place.
and start hacking people up and shit? Like, nah, I ain't Hannibal Lecter, man. I'm
you
happy to
know,
fucking be here.
man. Now check this out, Dave. So they tell me, you in 2D, 35. I say 2D, 30. I said, where that's at? They say it's a building with a D on it. So I'll go and start there. I look at the dude. So I'm pushing my cart down the
The cart.
thing, down the road, yeah, with all my stuff on it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking like the Grinch. I'm looking like I got so much shit. I'm looking like the Grinch that stole Christmas. 'Cause I got
Wow.
all my shit.
Because they don't really fuck
So
with you
I
in
get
Death
down.
Row, right? When it comes to your
No,
stuff.
they don't. You just
Wow.
have right. They don't. You just got motherfuckers in there got all kind of shit.
Right.
So I get down here, man, and I find the cell, man. This dude, the celly, has a sign on his wall, and I'll never forget it. He said, "No smoking, no fags, no gambling, and wash your ass."
That's crazy. So how long he been down? He had been down.
Oh, he wasn't even down longer than me. He may have been down 10 years, and that ended up being my guy. He ended up
Yeah.
being like my little brother.
But they at least
But
let it be
he had
known,
it on.
like,
But
listen.
right.
Right.
But when I seen it, me being me, I took the sign down. I took it down. And I put it on his bed, right? And I don't know if because he's not in the cell. They told me your bunkie at work or something. I don't even remember. All I know is I don't man, what the fuck you talking about?
Yeah, he knew
I put
you
that
were
shit
there.
on there, even though I agree with everything on there.
Right. But you're not
So,
taking
right,
control.
I,
Like, problem solved,
right,
here's your
right,
sign, okay?
right, right,
Like,
right, right,
but you're not
right.
running
Plus,
this shit. I don't
plus,
give a fuck.
right, you might. That's where I'm getting at.
Right.
You can get something established right off the rip. 'Cause I don't know you, and you certainly don't know me. So I
But
threw
I'm
that on
sure
his
they let
bed.
him know you got a death row inmate coming, and he's coming to live with you.
Right, right, right.
I know he probably
So
was like,
he
oh,
comes.
fuck. You know what I mean?
So when I finally meet him, good dude, but he built like a sack of potatoes. I said,
Uh,
man,
just sit
I said,
down.
look at this. Man,
Yeah.
this motherfucker's a mess. He ain't, you know what I mean? This guy's a
Right.
mess. But I look at him. He said, yeah, he told me his name. I told him my name. He was like, yeah. The case manager told me I'd be, they was putting you in my
Yeah.
cell and nah. I said, oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I said, what they tell you? He said, well, they ain't tell me much other than would it be all right if a guy coming from Death Row OSP. He's been in a cell by himself for a long time, and could you look out for him? I said, look out for me. That's what he told me. I said, look out for me. I said, how you gonna look out for me, player?
Yeah.
He said, oh no, not like that. I said, because now I'm suspicious. I'm like, man, I need to get the fuck up out of here. What- They
Nah,
own
but
me.
I can
I'm
understand the
paranoid.
miscommunication. Nah, but I can understand the miscommunication and shit. it just shows you that the
Right. And that's
staff,
all it.
death row staff, know how to deal with
Right.
death row inmates, but the other staff on other
Right.
compounds don't know how to
They
deal
do
with that
not.
situation. So it's like, would you? And that's crazy that they would even ask, would you mind and shit, you know? And he probably don't, because again, the stigma behind death row is like, these are people who already committed murder. Do they have a problem? And then they're coming from an environment of that. Like, do they have? Are they going to be able to adjust to the yard, which is a whole different animal?
Right.
You know what
I
I'm
think
saying?
that's what they primarily was trying to wonder.
Yeah.
And he was like, and he was just trying. He helped me immensely.
Yeah.
What it was is I was I'm super hyped.
Fucking the
My
18
shit was
years. Hell
up.
yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah, right. So I'm any little thing I'm like what you mean you looking out for me? You can't look out for me. I look out for me.
That's funny.
I'm cool.
Calm down,
And
bro.
then so later, right? So later on they have a child. They call for child. And he was like, "Man, you going to child?" I said, "Nah." He said, "No, no, 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 man. Let's walk up here." I was like, "Well, I ain't put my stuff up and all that stuff." And he looked at me, and on the real as shit, he said, "Hey, man, ain't no motherfucker coming in here. I assure you that. He ain't coming in here." I said, "All right, man."
So
I
he
go
was
up there
already
to the child
established
hall.
though. Yeah. If he
Yeah,
could say it
yeah.
like that,
So
he was already somebody in that little
yeah,
area.
and it was real. They ain't going up in there.
No.
Uh, uh.
Definitely
So
not now. you
right,
got
right.
you got two of
So
them in there
so he went
now.
up.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, he knew my little brother Chris. And my little brother Chris was the first family member I touched when I was off death row because he was at Warren when I got there.
Really? Okay.
So he tell me, he said, "Hey man," he say, "You free, brother." And I was like, "Who?" He say, Freeway, your brother. He was talking about you." I said, "I don't know nobody like that. He got me mixed up,
Wow.
right?" He was like, "Your name George, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." I said, "What's free name?" He said, "Chris." I said, "Oh, yeah, that's right. He down here. He's a little badass down here." So I see him, and oh wait, if I'd have known what I know then, boy, I would have went up the hill. I would have went to 11. But this,
Oh, is he caught in the mix?
oh, all day,
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
all
Fuck
kind of
that.
shit. I'm like,
I don't know you, bro.
I'm
Stay
not,
over there.
man.
Shit.
And there, I don't know, and I didn't.
Right.
I knew you as a baby. I knew you as a baby. You my family. I love you. But you was 6 or 7 years old when I went to the joint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And now you're fucked up in the
Oh,
head. So
you don't.
I'm good. I'll
Yeah.
pass.
And now you off, and now you off the chain. You know. So, but that's a whole different.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
whole
yeah.
nother big
But
story.
that's a lot to
But
have to come
but
to,
I end up
from death row.
right. I Now later on that night they called wreck at 6:30. I'll never forget it. So I walk up here on this yard with all these dudes. I ain't never been around this kind of movement
Right.
ever.
God damn.
And I deal with 20 people, 25 people. Now I'm dealing with 1,500 dudes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
700, 800, yeah, four,
Yeah.
500, 600 dudes walking up on the yard. And I get up on that yard, man, they got music blasting. I'll never forget the song they was playing. It was the Ghetto Boys, Resurrection. Back up on your ass, it's a resurrection. Group harder than hard. And I'm like, the
Yeah.
resurrection? I'm like, they doing that? I mean, it's blast.
Yeah.
And I'm watching all these dudes hooping, lifting weights, great,
Right. Prison.
working out,
Yeah.
playing basketball, prison, softball. And the first thing I did is a brick wall by the issue room where they pass out equipment for the rec. It's a wall, and you can, lean up against it. I got right up on the back on that wall, put my back to the wall, put my foot up, and I'm just watching these dudes, right? And it's a guy that I grew up with, a childhood friend that was there that recognized me, pulled up on me, and said, "George, what's up, man?" I'm looking and I don't recognize nothing in him. Blame it on my head, not my heart. And he said, "Man, you don't remember L, bro? You don't remember L?" all them skipping school days, man. You, I said, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I remember you, L. That's my guy. And then you start talking about skipping school. I'm thinking, shit, maybe I should have cut my ass.
Kept my ass in school, it'd be all right. But that's a trip because you know when you're on that yard, it's like when Dale gets on the yard. Dale is a friend of ours, like our brother and shit. Pro boxer. When he lands on the yard, people
Man,
are aware of it. The COs, the staff, like, and then the
and
inmates make
and
you just because it's gossip and shit. So now you coming off death row, you land on that shit, and you go
pure
from
pure gospel.
right, you go from your case, whatever happened in that situation, to 19 years on death row. You're not dealing with people. So when you land on that, y'all, only thing I would be thinking about in my head is like, am I gonna have to kill one of these motherfuckers? Like that's in my
Well,
head. Yeah,
that's your first. That's your first. That's crazy. That's your first thing
yeah,
is that boy, it's gonna be a full time job not to get one of these dudes out the
yeah.
way because they gonna think this shit sweet. And that's the only thing that I'm thinking. I said I can't. I mean, we ain't gonna do that, right?
Right,
But I was taking the wrong track. That's the
right.
wrong tactic, Kate, for real.
Because you
But
know
you don't
now.
know because you
Right,
don't know any.
right,
Now you because now I know. You know, these some of these dudes is just soft as gauze and scotch tape. Some of
right.
these motherfuckers, you know, they look tough, but they ain't nothing
Yeah,
but
yeah.
cotton balls and scotch tape. Most of them, anyway.
And then
You
like you
know,
see them
so
out
I'm
here talking again. They keep taking this shirt off. You got some dudes that got physique, but you don't. I don't know whether if you got muscles or not. I don't know how that plays when real pressure's on. You know what I'm saying? Like
because first of all, nobody knows how they act in a crisis. But
right,
you know, how we get down, we didn't even do that. We wore big ass. To this day, I wear big ass. Well, you don't know how big I am. You can just about see my frame, but you don't actually know how big I am till I pop this top.
right.
Then you'll see. But we didn't do that. We kept sweatshirts on. We worked out in sweatshirts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff they out here about you talking about you do the pool they saw, man, who does that, man?
They
Don't
do it
fucking
out
do
here
that
all day
shit.
long. I mean, you do it in the summertime, but it's because it's hot. But out here, everything is image. I gotta portray this image. So it's the tats and all this, whatever you associated with. And out here it play. I mean, I watch on these social media and people follow that. They're like intrigued by it. And the shit don't mean anything. You could be as big as you want to be. That shit don't mean anything in there. It means zero in there. So I
So
can
no, that
imagine like,
you know what they tell you. That thing will deflate your ass quick.
yeah, yeah.
Motherfucker,
And
you
and
couple
and
them
I
fat.
mean, and I want to cover this and probably there's a few I still want to kind of engage in the next podcast related to this on experiencing the people. But while we're having this
Right.
podcast, we talked about yesterday was an inmate killed a CO in Ross,
Yeah.
and I've been doing a lot of
Yeah, Christmas
yeah,
Day.
yeah. So I've been doing a lot of research on that. I'm gonna do something with you on that because they're definitely the inmate is the villain and the CO is the saint, and that's how it's right now in the
Right,
media being portrayed. You know what I mean?
right.
But since I researched it, I seen that dude gave him a ticket for disrespect, disobedience, the CO a couple months early.
You have 1 minute
So
remaining.
you don't know how it plays out. And I think when I go to do it, I'm gonna grab a section from last season, 60 minutes, 60 days in, because there was a
Well,
fucking CO that was just
one
like
thing
that
we
asshole.
right. So one thing we will leave them with is this: when shit happen in a vacuum, and
Nah.
sometimes petty begats petty, and people get fed up with the shit.
Yep.
And I don't know what happened, but I do know one thing: ain't no innocence in this shit.
Nah.
You can believe that.
Nah. It's just people thinking that shit is
Hey,
sweet. Anyway, I love you,
hey,
bro.
listen. I love you, man. I appreciate the word,
Yeah,
man,
for
and
sure,
letting me
man.
get a chance to say it. You
Oh,
hear me, man?
yeah.
And I'll talk to you later.
Yeah,
I love you,
definitely.
bro.
Love you too, man. We gotta get these tickets in. Come on, Indy. I don't know who you
Man,
got. You got a
man,
bunch of them.
come on, Andy. I
Yeah.
can't believe I put Atlanta on my shit. They
Nah,
better
it
win.
doesn't matter. That's the last game, so we'll cash that shit out
All right.
beforehand.
Bingo. Peace.
All right, then peace, bro. Anyway, that's G Frank. We're just talking about his time on death row, transitioning from the actual death row to the yard. Now, I was in Chillicothe when death row got moved over there, and that was I ain't gonna lie, that was real sad when you see them walking around because they were the only inmates always cuffed up, and then they had this like a blue pants with a orange stripe down, and I always thought that they were alone, like they didn't mingle with each other. But the yard on Chillicothe, the section that they were at, I think it was like building B or whatever. You could see them out the windows, and you could see them, wrecking, working out together and stuff like that. So, um, but just to be 19 years on death row fighting, and then all of a sudden you get your freedom. And so I could imagine that that would have been real heavy. Like one thing about G's a solid dude, good nature, always trying to look out for dudes that's going in there. A lot of times you got youngsters that go in there with a lot of time, and they don't really feel the sentence of a 60-year sentence or anything like that till like 4 or 5 years, and then they realize like I'll never be married, I'll never be in love, I'll never have kids, and that's a weighty thing to one day open your eyes to. And so, people like G Frank, I try to, give them some hope within that situation, because that's just a horrible way to live. To just, especially if you go in there and you're 20. I think he was 20, 21, 20 years old, and he's in his 50s now. He's been down 35 years. But if you're 21 years old and you're young and you're healthy and you got a life sentence in there, you know you're going to die in there. You could die at 80 years old. If you're 20, that means 60 years that you're going to be in there. And so, personally, I mean, unless you do something to a child or to a woman, I don't think that, and this is my opinion, you shouldn't have to do that kind of time. I mean, at some point, you got to get a second chance. I don't care what, I mean, I'm talking about in regards to homicide, because there's people who commit homicides and they get out. So what's the difference? Anyway, we're back doing these podcasts, and I'm going to be working with inmates in other states to cover situations. Um, the recent video, I think it was in New York, of staff killing an inmate, and then you watch it on TikTok, and people are like, good for him. And this is what, again, you don't understand. You can say good for him. There are people in there right now for crimes that are not murder who have committed murder. What do you want from them? Because you could say good for them, and people hear that, they see that, and they start becoming resentful. Okay, you don't see me as a human being, regardless however your stance is when it comes to that. But this particular kid was 6 years in there, and he had well, getting back to the Ross, the recent homicide of a CO by an inmate. There's two sides of it. You see the one in New York, you see exactly what could cause that, even though they actually killed the inmate. But in that case, all they want to talk about is what he was in there, stabbed his girlfriend, whatever, and he got 6 years, or whatever it was, how many years he was in there, and they wound up killing him. And the kid that was killed the CO, he only had 6 years. So what led him to be that? Again, it's like you don't know who you're dealing with most of the time. Do you want them to be rehabilitated, or do you not want them to be rehabilitated? So if you just sit there and be like, fuck him, he deserves that. Okay, he might in your eyes because he's going to do some time. But the next person that's in there for could be drug trafficking for 3 or 4 years, but he's got a body, a murder under his belt, or in his life, he's going to get out. And if he hasn't taken the time to rehabilitate, then what you dealing with? You're going to run into that person, and you're going to be wishing that if you catch him at the wrong time, you're going to be wishing that the structure of prison had given him more of an opportunity to change his life. So, because now it's affecting your life. However, all you got to do is look at Brian Goldsby and I think it's Megan Tokes. He killed her when he got out because they didn't do anything for him in there. He was a sex offender, but we'll cover that at another podcast. But anyway, we thank you for tuning in, and we're going to keep, like I said, we're going to keep pumping these out. So, peace.